Hello all you fell-blooded cosmonauts, as always I am Cosmic, and today we're sitting down to review the latest World of Warcraft expansion, Legion. Developed and published by Blizzard, Legion is the 5th expansion to the most popular MMO of all time. It has been a very long time since I've played World of Warcraft. I played very fervently during the Burning Crusade and of course Wrath of the Lich King, which was my favourite expansion. And then when I played Cataclysm Beta, did not like Cataclysm 1 iota, left the game, returned for Mr. Pandaria for a month, did not like Pandaria, left the game, returned for Warlords of Draenor, stayed for about a week, hated Warlords of Draenor, left, and finally returned for Legion. So the game takes place right after the events of Warlords of Draenor, which I personally think shouldn't have even happened, but that's neither here nor there. Why would you put time travel in a game? I do not know, but that is that. And essentially, once Warlords of Draenor is over, the Burning Legion has once again returned and begins invading Azeroth once more. And in order to stop Gul'dan and the Burning Legion, you're sent on a quest to the Broken Isles to gather the Pillars of Creation. So let's talk a little bit about the Broken Isles themselves. I have to say I am massively impressed with the Broken Isles in terms of the level design and world building. The zones and the level design and all the different things to explore is fantastic, and I don't think I've seen as good level design in World of Warcraft in a very long time. The zones look fantastic, everything looks colourful, everything is different, there's lots of variety, there's lots of things to see, and I love the fact that there's a lot of verticality to the Broken Isles. I love the fact that there's tons and tons of things to find and explore, and I think that in terms of world design and level design, in and of itself, on its own, I think Blizzard have done a top-notch job with Legion. That being said, just as a side note, I do love New Dalaran and the fact that it's over the Broken Isles, but why the hell did you not put an auction house in New Dalaran? I cannot for the life of me understand why there isn't an auction house. It's driving me crazy, Blizzard. Now, Legion essentially introduced several new features, and we'll go through them one by one. But first, I wanted to start with class order halls. Now, players of Warlords of Draenor will be familiar with garrisons and the travesty that was garrisons. And class order halls essentially are garrisons 2.0. And that's just what they are. They work essentially very similar to garrisons, pretty much identically similar to garrisons, except that instead of followers and just random recruits, you're recruiting well-known lore figures from the World of Warcraft, and you're essentially focused on paladin or warrior or druid, etc., etc. And for the most part, it works well. I like them a lot more than garrisons, but when you start to get, once you've hit level 110 and you start to really see the grind that it once again becomes like it did with the garrison system, you do realise that it is essentially the garrison system. It does become repetitive, it does become frustrating, and it is a time sink. Now, I do like the fact that the class order halls have it's a multiplayer hall. It's not just a single player garrison. You are with other players of your class. The problem with it is, and I say this, the problem with it is the fact that yes, you're all there, but you're not really, because there's nothing to do together. There's nothing there for people to take part in. There's no reason for anyone to talk to anybody else. There's no communal quests or anything like that. It's essentially garrisons, but you have other players in there in their own garrison, and it doesn't make much sense. I get why they want you to do it that way, but if you're going to make a multiplayer garrison, at least do something with the multiplayer side of it. Now, in everybody's class order hall, you will have a forge that is directly connected to the artifact system. Now, the artifact system is a big one. It is a massive, massive deal in Legion because, of course, instead of weapon drops, everybody has an artifact, and most classes have 3 artifacts that essentially You get an artifact at the very start of Legion expansion, and you use artifact power to then power up that weapon and improve it and add traits. And it's essentially a weapon for life, so to speak. Instead of a bag for life, you've got a weapon for life now. And I really love it. I absolutely love the artifact system. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for looting. I'm all for gathering various loots and etc, etc. But the artifact system is something that I can really invest in. Not only does it have its own trait system, so I can customize it to the way I want to play, particularly for my paladin tank. I like the ability to really customize that. But ultimately, it's a weapon that I can get involved in. It's a weapon that I can get invested in. I feel that it's given you an extra reason to play. Once you've hit that level cap, and once you start the grind for, end game gear, raiding tier gear, it's a reason to keep doing missions. It's a reason to keep exploring. It's a reason to keep going around and looking for rare mobs, etc, etc. And I think it's ultimately worked for the better. I think that while there was concern that everyone's going to be walking around with an Ashbringer, and to a degree that is somewhat the case, you can transmog your weapon to look like any other weapon in the game. And I think that it's added something unique and nice to the game that wasn't there before, because you still have all the looting. You still have, all the armor and the trinkets, etc, etc, but you have a weapon that you can invest in, spend time in, and ultimately becomes a part of your character. That being said, just as a side note, I do kind of feel sorry for warriors. They did kind of get shafted in terms of artifact appearances, because paladins got the best sword and shield combo, being the Truth Guard, and monks got the kick-ass Hulk hands effort that's going on over there. And sadly, warriors kind of got none of the cool weapons. So if you're a warrior, sorry about that. So let's move on to questing. Let's talk about questing. Now, the great thing about Legion, and this is something that I was really impressed with, was the fact that you don't have a linear path in terms of the progression of the story and the progression of the questing and the progression of zones. So the great thing about Legion is that you can start anywhere on the Broken Isles you want, except for Suramar. And that's fantastic, because the great thing is all the zones scale to your level. So you will always find mobs that will be a challenge for you. You will always get experience that's for your level. And you will level up from, 100 to 110 very, very quickly. But I really liked that the zone scale. I thought that was a lot of fun, especially during the leveling experience. I have to say, once you're actually at 110, it does get a little bit annoying that there's not mobs that you can just flatten so you can go do what you want to do. But ultimately, it's a double-edged sword that way. I think that it works, the non-linear aspect of the questing works really, really well. It was a lot of fun. It was nice to be able to control how I proceeded, what pillar of creation I went after first, what story section I wanted to experience first. And ultimately, I have to say that in terms of questing and narrative, Legion has absolutely blown me away more so than any expansion has since Wrath of the Lich King. I love the fact that there is so much voice work in Legion, that there's so much story and narrative content, that it was, for me, as a lore fan of the franchise, as someone who was more concerned about the story in every other expansion and hated Pandaria and hated Warlords of Draenor because of the story, that this one hit right home for me. It was fantastic. It had some really, really fun twists and turns, had some reintroduction of some really old well-known lore figures, and I just think, as a fan of the Warcraft series and of early World of Warcraft expansions, this expansion is perfect for me and perfect for people who were looking for that kind of thing. Now, the last major feature of Legion was, of course, the new class, which was the Demon Hunter. Now, the Demon Hunter is a melee class that is essentially works from agility and leather armor, and you can tank or DPS. And I really enjoyed my time with the Demon Hunter. It was something that I played once the pre-launch event started, and I have to say that it's one of those things where you're either going to love the Demon Hunter or you hate it, and I really liked it, but it's not something that I think I could main as. There's a lot of people who I know have played Paladin or Warrior for the entirety of Force expansions and have decided to switch to Demon Hunter. And that's cool. Like, I can see why they would want to do that. I've wanted a Demon Hunter class in this game since Burning Crusade, and they've finally got it, and it's a kick-ass class, and it works really well. They have some really cool abilities. They are, they're full of surprises. It's a lot of fun to play. It's a very fast-paced class to play, but ultimately it was just something that didn't really stick with me, but I think it is a fantastic addition to the class system. The last thing I wanted to talk about is, of course, dungeons and raids. Now, dungeons in Legion are fantastic. I really enjoyed them. I don't want to spoil too much, but there's some really great characters to face. There's some really great events and encounters in those dungeons that are just a ton of fun. There's a couple that I didn't really like, I have to say, particularly Assault and Violet Hold, because I never liked the old one, and this one is very similar, and it's very long and it's very boring. But other than that, I thought the dungeons were really, really well. They fitted perfectly with everything else in the expansion. The raids themselves so far have been really good. I haven't tried Heroic yet. I'm trying to still level up my eye level a little bit further before I start tanking in a heroic raid, but I have to say, for the most part, they work really well. They're a lot of fun. They're a lot difficult. I don't really want to talk too much about the raids because I think it's something that they have to be experienced for yourself. Overall, however, I have to say that I'm really impressed with this expansion. I think Blizzard have done a great job. It does have its own set of problems that are inherent to World of Warcraft, i.e. it is still World of Warcraft. There's been no massive mechanical change here. The gameplay suddenly hasn't changed into another type of genre or anything like that. It still plays like World of Warcraft plays, so it's ultimately going to get to the point where after you've completed all the story content and after you've done all the dungeons and the raids, it's going to be, I'm bored again time. I mean, luckily they do have a new expansion, a new patch coming out soon, but ultimately it is still World of Warcraft, and so, inherits the problems that have always been there. On top of that, I think that there are a couple of things that are a little bit too grindy in the endgame content, particularly in the world questing and the reputation grind. They're just a little bit too grindy, and there's just unnecessary grind that really is trying to force people to keep playing, but it is just ridiculously boring and monotonous, and I don't want to grind reputation for 6 weeks to get something. That all being said, however, I think it is one of the best expansions since Wrath of the Lich King. I think it is the best expansion since Wrath of the Lich King, to be honest. I don't think Cataclysm, Mr. Pandaria, or Warlords of Draenor hold anything up to Legion. I think in terms of narrative, in terms of quest content, I think Legion surpasses all three of those. Ultimately, I think if you're a fan of World of Warcraft, if you're a fan of, story-driven World of Warcraft back when it was good, Wrath of the Lich King, Burning Crusade, then this is for you. You will absolutely love Legion. So that is my review of Legion. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I am giving away a copy of the game, a digital copy of the game, so if you want to win that, do click the link in the description below. Let me know what your thoughts are on the video and what your thoughts are on the game. Do like if you liked, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video enough. And as always, I will see you next time.